Hey guys, how's it going? Measuring leg thickness here, and welcome back to Black Desert Online. And today's video is just an update on the Kunoichi guide. So it's lots of changes has happened since the other two guides I put out for her. So we'll just go over everything practically in this video. So I'll make sure you use the description and the bars down below to help you out, guide throughout the video for whatever the heck you're looking for. So we're just gonna go through skills, then we're gonna go through attacks, and then skill add-ons and all that good stuff, and pretty much like the new skill add-ons and rebams and whatnot. So we'll just go through that now, and obviously that's pretty thick. And then so first off, we're just gonna go through main skills here. If you're going towards Succession or Awakening, will sort of alert you to which skills are probably more important as you level up your Kunoichi. Obviously you won't have maximum amount of skill points like I do here, and that's just the beginning to go overview. Kuno is I don't know, I find her to be sort of like a decent class anyways. Like she can go for a burst style or gigantic AoE. Either way you're gonna have to like do a lot of finger work just to get a lot of the skills going around. You can of course sort of play her brain dead as well if you want, but if you're gonna play her brain dead, then you know, obviously don't expect as much as well either. Okay, so first off, Fatal Wind, this skill here, don't really need to worry about it until like way later on. It just sort of helps your basic attack. I don't know if it really applies to the block jump later on. It's just a tiny damage boost, don't really have to worry about it. Shadow Slash, you want to probably max this out eventually down the road. Not really a high priority skill, it's mostly used as sort of like for movement, and also like tiny chip shot extra damage on like just moving around if your sword just happens to run through something. So this is just mostly for tiny bonus damage, sort of like a mid priority skill, not really too important, so you can sort of ignore this until later on. Ghost Greeting, this is a skill you definitely want maxed out as soon as possible. Not only is it part of your movement blasts, it also lowers its cooldown and also gives you an attack speed buff in its absolute version, which you can also ignore with Shadow Slash, so you can use this for attack speed buffing yourself. Crescent Slash, you don't really need to take this unless you're going Succession. Otherwise, if you're going to take this, this is like far down the road. It's part of more of an advanced attack combo to do with Fox Claw. But if you're going Succession, then you need to pick this up. If you're going Awakening, you don't really need to pick this up until way later on when you have extra skill points to be put in. Ground Thrust, this is only for like surprise like mofo memes, or like just to prevent fall animation when jumping off a cliff and to fall at a very like consistent pace rather than just vertically down. So this is really useless. Just don't really put points in it unless you just want to meme around. Floor Sweeping, I don't really use this in Awakening. It might have like small uses in Succession just to get that down attack buff damage, considering that you can also have skill add-ons adding down attack damage to further grant you an even larger gaping buff for down attacks, and because Succession works a lot on doing a lot of down attacks as well. So Floor Sweeping might not be a high priority. It's also kind of expensive on points. It's not too expensive, but that down attack damage buff is still granted even without its absolute version. Otherwise, you can also use it for down smash comboing with like after like Shadow Clone or Shadow Stomp, but it's hard to kind of land and not really used that often. It can also be used to cancel into Shadow Stomp as well. Ankle Cutter, this is one of your signature skills you want to max out on Awakening or Pre-Awakening or Succession, so max this out as soon as you can. Making enemies lose 20 DP is a huge amount, and for Succession it's also one of your mobility skills. For Pre-Awakening and Awakening, it's just extra damage boosting for the DP loss, and it's also mostly a cancel into other skills as well. Fatal Blow, this should be taken mostly for Pre-Awakening, well, for any kind of style. It's another signature skill. The burst of damage that this provides is very, very instantaneous. It's very fast. It's super high damage, and in Succession it hurts like crazily high. And the most destructive thing you can do with this is hit a target that's floating with this skill. It's very hard to do because the melee range of this is very, very tiny. Is super duper tiny, and it's just like practically you have to almost be like hugging your target in order for this to hit. On top of that, Shadow Stomp is mostly a skill used before it if you want to get air attacks, if your target can be air attacked. The air attack modifier really pushes this like beyond. And then if you can tag that in after a Shadow Stomp and then use this, and then use Shadow Clone afterwards, you can probably get a lot of damage out in a very short time. Heart aiming is really expensive. It's a super hard hitter, but the problem is like I don't really like it is because the it's sort of clunky when you use it chained in with Fatal Blow or even just off of Shadow Slash. You can Shadow Slash cancel right into this thing, but either way, it's like it's really odd and sort of clunky to use, even though it hits really hard. So this is sort of like a mid-priority sort of to me because of its clunkiness and sort of ruins the flow of like attacks. But either way, it's still a skill you should pick up eventually, just not as high priority as Fatal Blow and the combo. Kunai Stab, unfortunately this thing sort of like fell off the face of the earth as the character got more and more developed and like everything just sort of got more changed and whatever. The damage of like Kunai Stab just fell off the face of the earth and it's just kind of not used anymore. You might want to just use it in early levels, but really there's no point to keep this on, or you might unspec it once you get past like the early levels and then once you hit like 55 or like 56 or whatever, it sort of like has no use anymore, and then you just lose the skill points and put it into somewhere else when you get the free skill reset coupons, unless you have an Old Moon book running for free respecking for yourself. Fox Claw, this is more of an advanced technique. You either pick this up if you're going Succession for the Prime versions, otherwise if you're using Preawakening and Awakening. This is should be taken just sort of like at a later stage level when you really need to squeeze out that little last bit of damage while you're waiting for other skills to cool down and you're not busy spamming the same things over and over. One of the reasons of this is like it's a little bit weaker than usual is because it's lacking critical hit. So skills that have no crit generally scale really high, but if you have crit added or raised up high enough from skill add-ons and crit rate and crit level buffs and other things, then these skills actually sort of shine a lot harder than the other skills that have their 100% inherent crit. So Foxclaw is part of that like far advanced like area later where you can squeeze out that extra damage for down attack or air attacks as well, to further boost out like the maximum efficient damage that you can pull out. Shadow Stomp is one of your movement skills. You want to like max this out as soon as possible to lower its cooldown, maximize its damage. Its accuracy rating is extremely high, and for Succession you want to take this like immediately, and also for Awakening, so regardless of which stance you take, you should take Shadow Stomp maxed out as soon as you can. Shadow Clone is maybe not as prioritized as Shadow Stomp, mainly because Shadow Clone is sort of just like an extra damage boost. It's sort of really weak in PvE. For PvP, it's a decent amount of damage, but for PvE, it does like absolutely nothing because it has like no crit rate. The crit rate's only applied in PvP, except for if you're going for Succession, then you should pick it up because it's also used as a mark trigger, and also it also has super armor in it for Succession style. So, and you can also use it without having to gauge Shadow Stomp before it or the buff before it in order to use Shadow Clone in Succession. So in Succession, again, just to say, it's like you can use it whenever you want actually, and it's a super armor skill, so sort of treat it more like a defense skill. The animation attack in Succession is also a lot slower in Succession. It's actually quite a bit slower, like maybe like half a second, whereas like in Preawakening and Awakening, you can blast out Shadow Stomp and Shadow Clone almost back to back with like no delay in between each one. So much so that like it could be so fast you might even cancel out the damage by accident. So it's just, if you're pressing the keys too fast, then you could actually lose damage, which is weird. Flash Slash, I don't really know how to use this properly in Awakening. I've seen other Kunos use it and absolutely devastate like hordes of enemies and people with it. I don't really have too much to comment about it because I don't know how to use it in that sense. Probably the 100% is very powerful, and in Succession you do want to take this skill and max it out right away. It's one of your main damaging skills and massive AoEs for Succession, but in Awakening no real comment other than like maybe probably pick it up halfway in or something. Like it's sort of like a mid-priority skill, and it's sort of, I don't really know how it's like practically applicable use is the best way I can put it. Ninjutsu Shackles, this sort of didn't have too much use other than for PvP, and its damage is kind of weak against monsters, but because of the skill enhancement like number 3, you actually do want to pick this up. because this kind of matches with ankle cutter, and I think this ankle cut, the ninjutsu ankle splitter is probably, it looks pretty fast in terms of its animation, so I would probably take that. I haven't really gotten to use it since it was just put in patch today, but it does look pretty smooth. And I'm not really using the other one. The other one, Shackle Target, is mostly a retreat skill and also debuff enemy and start chasing them down, so giving a giant speed turnaround. Tragic Blade is pretty much useless. This is a very tiny window for this to ever occur, so they should honestly revamp this skill like Kunai Stab and change it to do something else, because this almost never happens. Black Moonlight is actually good for grinding a lot of like PvE mobs, or also just catching like a huge AoE on the floor. One of the things again is like it's a non-crit skill, so if you can raise your crits very high, this thing could be actually fairly decently strong. It's not on the weak side, and it also skill add-ons have a really high tier of skill add-ons on this thing. So you can actually buff up like quite hard, or just land a dot that causes like 150 damage or something every 3 seconds, which is crazy. It's like chopping a health potion in half. And then Ninjutsu Shadow Explosion. This thing is practically useless for Preawakening and Awakening, but if you are in Succession, you want to take this immediately, as this is one of your hardest hitting skills. Also lacking critical. If you can get critical and use this on enemy down on the floor, it's practically like just erasing them. I've destroyed a whole group of Star Zen mobs after popping a crystal and just throwing Shadow Explosion, and they just disappear. So it hits really hard in Succession, but in Preawakening and Awakening, it really sucks. I think it's because the damage is split even harder than it is in Succession. I don't know what's up with the tooltip, but honestly, the Shadow Explosion Preawakening is so lackluster and useless that it should just be ignored if you're not going Succession. Tendon Cutter, one of your signature skills. There's kind of nothing to say about this other than that you should take it in any form. It's Kunoichi's like most signature attack. You use this for movement, you use this for super armor, it's got decent damage. If you got high crit rate, it's even better damage to strong damage. And for Succession, it's a blink as well. It's a blink strike into a target, and also helps with movement. It's if you twist your camera around enough, you can actually use it as part of movement. And then these prime skills, obviously, just take them for Succession. You should get them. They're all good. And then throwing kick. This is only if you're kind of using the kick option and block jump to try and hit your target, because it's got a huge accuracy rating of like 45%. But otherwise you can just ignore it. Doesn't really matter until way later. Target chase, you should probably take this just to help with mobility and movement, and just sort of getting around the place and skipping around everywhere. Ghost Step maxes as soon as possible, lowers stamina usage, I believe, and also cooldowns, and also increases its distance as it gets to level 3. Ninja Evasion, you can max this out for Assassin's Trail. I actually use this skill enhancement now instead of Heart Snatch, because a small change they made where you can use Shadow Stomp right after Assassin's Trail, which is a huge difference, and also it has an actual iframe in it that's not non-existent like the Heart Snatch was the other thing. You probably want to lock this as well. You probably don't want to leave this on, because after ghost stepping, spreading your legs kind of gets your Kunoichi tired, and you know, unless you're trying to just meme on your enemy and style on them and try and be a real nin, then that's fine, but otherwise generally recommended that you should probably lock this, because otherwise you'll run out of stamina based on your other attacks and things in either Succession or Awakening, and then you'll probably get destroyed, or you'll flex on them by doing leg splits in the air by ninja evasioning around. So, and Brace, this is a heal as well. You should probably take this as soon as you can. It's very useful. You'll most likely be using this more in Succession than you would in Awakening, and also try and trigger this off when you're using Pre-Awakening stance, because the animation is just like way faster, and if you try to do it in Awakening, it's like almost half a second longer in animation to get it to trigger. So this is a very useful skill, and also helps with keeping your attacks up very quickly. Otherwise you're gonna have to carry pots, or just you know, yeah, just carry pots if you don't want to use this. The extra boost of HP is really nice though, to be honest. Suicide Fall, this is mostly a PvP oriented skill. You can use this on PvE mobs too if they can be downed, and if they can be downed, then obviously use down attack right after dropping them into the floor. Otherwise, it's just mostly a PvE oriented skill. Smoke Screen, you want to max this as soon as you can, mostly because it's for a skill enhancement skill as well. And also it's for a lot of cancels for both Awakening, mostly for Succession. It's very important for Succession. For Awakening, it can still help with Rebam skills and also canceling into skills like Shadow Stomp, for instance. Still very useful. Also can be sort of part of used for movement for the ninjutsu concealment, which sort of boosts you forward a little bit. There's a lot of extra like movements, so you can help blink yourself around left and right with that. Kunai Throw, this is should be taken whenever you can after you've gotten most of the things you want in rotation. This is also part of canceling Shadow Stomp. You don't really have to worry about shurikens because Kunos don't use shurikens. If you do, then you sort of lose your block in Preawakening or Succession form, so don't do that. And Paralysis, this is just for debuffing the enemy when you throw kunais. The Jump Toss for stiffness is also really nice if you kind of just want to stiffen an enemy or something for whatever reason. And Evasive Throw, just so that you can sort of move and throw this for a debuff, is what it's going to be used for. Mostly used, more important in Succession than it is Awakening, so definitely try and take these when you can. It's relatively cheap. The Paralysis only if you're doing PvP, and then Flow Sky Stepping. This is this is just part of basic kit. Block Jump. This is, again, you've got like different options here. You should also read that part at the bottom there for like the damage. Throwing Kick for floating, Wind Slash for stiffness and whatnot. So, you know, get a feel for what you're trying to do to target or whatnot. Stiffness is like probably like beginning of a combo. Floating is like, I don't know, you could go like floating straight into the Fatal Blow and get that air attack in or something like that. Or just Shadow Stomp. And then Killer Training, take this obviously as soon as you can. The bonuses on this is wildly good. There's no question about it. Just level it whenever you can, as soon as you can. Prime Shadow, take this. It gives more crit rate, so you can treat all your skills with a base rate of like 5% crit or something like that. I think at level 5, yeah, it's 1% each. And that's pretty much it. Skilled Hunter just for PvE. Infinite Mastery, also take this as soon as you can because that HP helps with Fatal Blow damage as well slightly, since the Fatal Blow damage is 5% of your max HP extra. Alright, so that's pretty much it for skills overview on just the Pre-Awakening side and a bit of Succession and Awakening, like, you know, conclusions. So what you want to learn here next is probably like just like some basic combos. So some basic combos is we'll just go with the skills here. So we've got Shadow Slash. This is generally for movement as well. If you notice, it actually kind of moves you pretty quickly. If you just like go step and then straight into it, it's actually like quite farther if you're going to the left. For some reason, it's always going to the left. If you're moving to the left, the animation moving to the left is like slightly faster by like a couple milliseconds compared to going to the right. If you're going to the right, there's a tiny stutter. You'll notice that if you're playing the class and just trying this out on your own, there's like a tiny little delay there if you're going to the right instead of going to the left with Shadow Slash. And then with Ghost Greeting, there's a new change from way back that wasn't available back then, where you can actually just use Shadow Stomp off of Ghost Greeting. So you can just blast forward like this. And yeah, that's actually like really fast now. There's other things you can do with Ghost Greeting is go straight into Smoke Screen if you want, and then from Smoke Screen you can do another Shadow Stomp. That's only if you want a super armor, like just somewhere in the middle of it in case you're going into a crowd and a giant oopsie is happening, and then you just Smoke Screen and then Shadow Stomp instead. And then you also have your evasion buff as well. There's also been like some weird things that have happened while I was grinding, where I actually have also done like the Fatal Blow, and then I just did like somehow Shadow Stomp right after. I don't know why or how, where it just came out instantly. It might have to do with the Fatal Blow combo. Obviously I don't know how that happens. It just happens every now and then. That's probably like something I still haven't actually discovered myself, or either that the game is like just acting all weird or something. But either way, yeah, I don't know about that one. So that's one of the things with Ghost Greeting. So if you really want to extend that movement, it's like Ghost Greeting into Shadow Stomp into some Shadow Slashes and then a Ghost Step to just like move. You can go really far, so, and you can start maneuvering around all over the place. Another one is a ankle cutter into Smoke Screen into Shadow Stomp, just for like a bit of more movement. That one's, again, it's not as far as what you want. If you want a full-on combo with ankle cutter, it's mostly ankle cutter into Crescent Slash into Foxclaw. But this is like really far in, where if you're Awakening or Succession, well, Succession you can do it, but Awakening, it's like a really far end combo that won't really be as high damage as the Awakening skills. So it would be like Ghost Greeting, Ankle Cutter, and then Crescent Slash, and then Foxclaw. So you use all those 4 skills back to back. You can easily mess it up. If you mess it up anywhere along the way, you sort of slow down for like half a second or whatever. It's quite a bit slower, because if you do Crescent Slash by itself, you do this whole like body twist before you even like swing, which takes forever. Whereas if you do it from like Ankle Cutter, it's like instant. And then from that, if you also notice, like Foxclaw is also like forever as well. There's like this weird like delay in the beginning, which is that first hit or whatever before it does the extra hit, but the extra hit damage is like, you can skip right to the extra hit damage if you're using a Crescent Slash. So if you just go like Crescent Slash into that, it's practically instantaneous. And then so if you want to like really speed that up, it's just, you know, Ankle Cutter into Crescent Slash into Foxclaw. And then like if you put all your skill add-ons, sort of like what I did with Ankle Cutter and Foxclaw, you can get all your buffs out really quick and then just swap back into like Awakening. Or even then, if you like need more buffs on active immediately, then you can also switch all that for Succession, because Succession you get 6 skills to choose from in that fashion as well. So you can boost all your like buffs really quick, since they have such short timings, and since you can pull out all those skills in such short timings, you'll have your buffs for use for other things as well. So that's also why it's like a really advanced like far technique kind of thing. Floor Sweeping, this is again for either combo like combo chaining or whatever for down smashes, or either that for down attack bonus. And you can cancel that straight into Shadow Stomp. So just Floor Sweeping into Shadow Stomp is instant. Another skill here is Shadow Clone. So if you're going like really wild, you can practically just blast off in Pre-Awakening and Awakening, where you just kind of blast into something and then just Shadow Clone. You do sort of have to like whip the camera around in case you miss, because it's only like 1 hit. It's very lackluster, but if you just have skill add-ons on that as well, you could have your buffs coming out of Ninjutsu, Shadow Stomp, and Shadow Clone as an option, depending on what you feel comfortable with. So for me, I actually just like the Ankle Cutter and the Foxclaw thing, whatever, every now and then. I don't do it all the time, it's just when I run out of skills in rotation. Flash Slash, again, I don't really know how this works in like Awakening. I'm in Awakening right now, so, but if you're in Succession, you can do that like just without having, you can just do that like just almost instantly with a smoke screen all the time. You should always do it after a smoke screen. It doesn't work like that in Awakening. I try to do it and then you still just sort of stand around rather than disappear immediately. So that's one of the problems of that. And then for Ninjutsu Shackles, that thing's really slow. Nothing really to say about it. It's like a hotkey skill, but the Rabam skill is like this, and it's really fast. It's actually extremely fast. It's very nice that it's super duper fast like that. But the Ankle Splitter doesn't have a movement debuff slow on it. The other version does, so I would say like if you're going for PvP, Shackle Target is probably better to take because it's just faster, and might actually work a lot better with Succession, since this actually pushes you backwards, because it pushes you backwards a little bit. And in Succession, if you do Ankle Cutter right after that, you would just blast into the enemy instead. There's other skills here, which is this is Black Moonlight. Black Moonlight, mostly I just use it after like a Shadow Clone, and then just use it right after that. I don't really ever use it on its own to start off anything. It's mostly just fit in somewhere in between, just for that extra AoE, and I'm kind of forgetting what to do. Shadow Explosion, absolutely pointless in Awakening. It's more so a pre-awakening thing and a succession thing. And then Kunai throw for Shadow Stomp also works as well. Okay, if you want to do that, you can't really move with it and do that. Like in succession, you can like sort of like sideways toss and then go instantly into Shadow Stomp, but it doesn't work in pre-awakening or awakening. You have to be standing still and just do a single toss. So that's another pre-awakening thing. So for brace, in between like the two types. In pre-awakening, it obviously triggers like practically immediately, but if you do it in awakening, it's a lot slower. So obviously you want to try and do this whenever you're not in awakening, because you kind of stand there for like almost half a second longer, just rubbing the wheel for whatever reasons. Grapple Suicide Fall is like a little strange. You can sort of like, this is a really weird thing. You can, if you actually kind of press too many buttons or like movement buttons, like Ghost Step for instance, when you grab an enemy, you could technically like take them for a real ride. Like rather than just going up once, I don't know what happens. Sometimes you could like spin around twice or something rather than just doing it once. So like sometimes I grab an enemy and then like if you hold on to Ghost Step, then it just disappears. Like I don't think that damage almost goes through all the way. It sort of skips like part of it, which is weird. I don't know how oh, maybe they fixed it. There used to be this weird thing where you could actually grab somebody and keep them in the air for like a second and a half longer, and that sort of just works with like cooldowns. I don't think that's possible anymore, because you sort of just take them for a ride over and over. But yeah, you can actually cancel out of the damage, so you probably obviously want to wait until the thing is actually fully done and before you move out of the way. Otherwise you just cancel out your damage there, because I don't know why it does that. That's just Suicide Fall. I swear to God, I've done something weird with that before where it sort of triggered twice, but that may have been like an odd small bug or something. I don't know. I didn't even know you were allowed to cancel out of it just from holding a like Ghost Step when you're doing it too, and then the damage cancels itself out. So who's really winning there? You're not even CCing the enemy, you just sort of like let him go and be like, oh, I changed my mind. But yeah, if you use this, just let it go all the way through if you actually want the CC and the hit to go through. Otherwise, like if you're holding like Ghost Step or something, you might actually just cancel it and do nothing to your enemy, which just kind of sucks. Alright, and that's just the pre-awakening. There's not really much about Tendon Cutter other than like, you know, you can twist the camera around to sort of move yourself forward if you turn it around fast enough. To the left. You want to turn it left if you want to go forward. If you turn to the right, you're kind of going backwards instead. Or either to the side. Well, not really backwards, but yeah, it's if you turn to the left, you'll go forward if more than anything. So that's one of the other things with like Tendon Cutters. For succession, that's when you go it goes faster in succession, and there's an extra hit at the end where you blink into the enemy. And then that's pretty much it for pre-awakening.